So let's talk about a couple of other scheduling features. We can define scheduling addresses and scheduling blockers. Let me describe to you what those are. So we're going to start with scheduling addresses. And what these are is a way of defining addresses in your system that show where techs begin their day and where they end their day. And so these may be your office, or they may start their day at the office and end at their home address, or maybe they start at the office and end at the warehouse, or whatever it may be. So we can set those up here, and I have a couple set up, and I'm just going to edit one to show you. So setting a scheduling address is super easy. Mine's looks like it's in the middle of Golf and Country Club, but you know, that works. So we set up the location, and then we set up who starts or ends at that address down here under users, and then we define whether they start their day or end their day here. So I have this one set up to start, which I've called office. And then I have another one set up to end, which I've imaginatively called Office 2. And I'll show you how this works. So when we have these set up, if we go into the scheduling interface, what you'll now see on the left and the right are these little home icons with a drive time extending from it, and show this is showing for these techs from their start location how long does it take to drive out here, and from their end location how long does it take to go from the last job back to where they end their day. So this is pretty useful in some cases, especially here you can see we have a job that's only about 30 minutes from the office, so I could probably move this one up a bit if I wanted to. We have one here that's 70 minutes, and so it's a pretty big difference, and it'll probably alter how I set up the schedule. So let's talk about blockers. You can see these here, and I'm just going to jump into the blocker menu before we talk about them in the interface here. What blockers are for, they're a way to define times of day that techs should not be booked for jobs, but also allow those times to be modified. So you can kind of do this today by using the availability setup and defining periods of unavailability, but the problem with that method for things like lunch is that's fixed. If I set up my availability to say, you know, John doesn't work between noon and 1 every day, if he needs to move his lunch to 12:30, that's kind of a problem. We're not going to want to go and change the whole configuration of the schedule to change that, so we can use blockers. So these work quite similarly to the scheduling availability, if you remember that from prior videos, where I'm just setting up a name, when this blocker should start, does it repeat forever, and if it doesn't, how many times does it repeat, how many weeks does it run for, and so I have this on 1, so this would repeat every week, 2 would be every other week. It's just the same as the scheduling. And then the days this runs on, when it starts and ends, and who it applies to. So if we go back into the scheduling interface, I'll show you this here. We have these blockers listed out in the middle, and you can see these are kind of represented in a similar way to jobs, but I can drag these. So they don't have drive time on them like a job would, and there's no menu, there's nothing to edit on these. They're just a very simple way of blocking out time. You can see these were all set at noon, but now if I had, whoever this is, Alicia, that needed to move her lunch to 11:30, I can move that down, and then that allows me to bring another job in here. Same deal, maybe whoever this is, Lambert's taking his lunch a little later. I can push this out, and that would then allow me to move a job into that space. Same way that drive time isn't blocked if it overlaps on jobs. We can still save a job here with overlapping drive time. It's just a guide. We can do the same thing with lunches, or any blocker. But I cannot overlap a blocker with a job completely. It's going to put the job into this red state like it would if we overlap 2 jobs together. And so we can always ensure that a tech is having a certain amount of time blocked out for lunch. And you could use these for breaks, or you could even use these for, you know, any kind of time that a tech may not be working that you want to allow to be moved around a little bit. So there's our scheduling addresses and our scheduling blockers. Hopefully you can see how these will be useful for your business. And as always, please come to the forum or shoot us an email with any questions.